I heard you spent like, was it $1,000 on your latest body pillow? Who's the anime figure on there?
It wasn't quite $1,000. It was 980. But yeah, close.
980. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds worth it. Better than your current collection, or?
Well, it's very diverse collection, so it's more on the mid size, and scale. Yeah.
Cool, man.
I'm assuming this is the opening right now.
I guess. Should we start a side podcast on your anime body pillow collection? Or maybe you could do a dual cast with like a body pillow in one of the chairs, and then
it's gonna get to the point where everyone just thinks I'm a degenerate.
That's kind of what I'm going. It's sort of a side goal of the podcast, if I'm being real.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep piling on more and more degeneracy to the point where people are just not sure what's real and what's not.
Yeah. Well, for people showing up right now, welcome to the Level With Me podcast. This is the podcast where myself and Matimio, two extremely famous content creators, talk about video games, life, everything and anything in between. And today, love, loss, live, laugh, love, all that stuff. Today, we have a very cool guest, someone I've known for a long time but haven't chatted to in a while, someone whom I'm a big fan of and really excited to ask many detailed and interesting questions to. It is Darkness429, also known as Tim.
Yeah, they call me Tim.
Sorry, that's Darkness249 or Tim.
Tim. Yeah. A lot of people are like, man, your name is so edgy and dark, and then you're you. And like, yeah, it was, I was 14 and I kept the gaming moniker and here we are.
Yep.
Oh, well, if I could go back in time, but alas.
Your name does remind me of the Monty Python sketch, basically.
Yeah, and they called me Tim.
Yeah.
Magician.
Well, I think the last time I saw you, Tim, I think you were streaming on Twitch.
Oh, geez. Yeah, it was before Facebook.
You weren't a dad. You weren't a beefcake, as I will call it.
Yeah.
It's quite a while ago. It must have been a Battlefield event, would be my guess.
Probably. Yeah, it was probably like TwitchCon-ish, probably like a Battlefield 1 release time-ish. That's like right around there, or maybe V. I don't know. One of those Battlefields from a long time ago.
Do you remember?
It's been a while.
Do you remember our mandate in Sweden, in Stockholm?
There was a mandate?
Yes. Oh, that was Charlie. That was before Overwatch. That was right before the Overwatch beta came out.
Is that when that happened? Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was fall. It was fall in Stockholm. I'll never forget that. It was actually a really nice mandate.
How old are we?
I don't know. It's too old, Matt. We're very old. We're doing this for way too long, dude.
It's a long time ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So okay, Tim and I were at a. Surprised you weren't there, Matt. It was probably the plane flight thing, but it was like a pre-release for Battlefield 1. Mm-hmm. And we came to give feedback or something, be like, oh, the game looks
real early.
Crazy. Yeah, really early.
Yeah.
And then we had nothing to do for like a couple of days or something. So we went around Stockholm and
went to the ship museum, which was cool.
I think it was called Vasa Muset. You remember that?
Got a better memory than I do.
I remember our date like it was yesterday,
It was so memorable. How could I forget?
Went to a cathedral. Yeah, it was good. Yeah,
it was a good time.
We're just going down memory lane.
I know. Well, I mean, that's what this podcast is about: is old gamers, being
old people,
just old people
reminiscing on the past.
Old.
Do you remember when Battlefield was good? That kind of stuff.
Unfortunately, that is kind of the trend too with Battlefield. Unfortunately,
yeah. Oh man, so some of the I've got a lot of things I want to ask you about, Tim, but one of the craziest, you've been going through some crazy stuff with streaming, because when I knew you from the early days, you were like mostly a YouTuber. Then I think, right?
No, I was only Twitch. I only live streamed.
Okay. I swear you made YouTube content, right?
Okay.
A little bit of YouTube content.
A little bit.
Okay. I remember when
that
you
kill in Rainbow Six was cool.
To like full time, right? Or no, you transitioned away from Battlefield. Maybe that was the big event where you're like, yeah, I'm like streaming stuff that's mostly not Battlefield now, and then you like stop coming to the Battlefield events, and I was like, goodbye, Tim. Like,
yeah, it
nice
was. Yeah, that was like Battlefield. It was probably right around the Rainbow Six time, like when Battlefield wasn't really fun to play anymore, and then it was a lot of Siege.
Yeah, Siege started exploding on.
That's when
streaming.
Matt started playing Rainbow Six Siege a lot.
Yep.
And then you switched over to Facebook, right? You got that.
Yeah, that was 2018.
2018. Okay, I think
Has
I
it
got a
been that
contract around that time, maybe slightly after that time.
Yeah, you came on a little bit after I did.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I totally didn't like commit to it. It was like, okay, I'm doing the hours recommended and I'm just going to like play something that I enjoy as opposed to trying to play the latest trendy thing.
Well, I think it was like the perfect storm for me because I had just started playing Fortnite. Like Fortnite had just started like being a thing. And I was just playing with the right people in the right time. And like I just carried that over to Facebook and like Facebook became like the Battle Royale hub. Mm-hmm. So like it just kind of just really worked out very, very well for me that I really enjoyed playing Fortnite. I played with cool people. I was decent at the game and kind of just like rode that train out and then like that was the Battle Royale like frenzy. So it was just like one BR after another. Yeah, so like I could just ride that for a while.
It went wild for a while. I remember because I was streaming World of Warships because I was like, what can I stream for 4 hours that I'm not going to go insane? I remember
that, yeah.
And my partner manager like sent me an email. It was like, hey, so the numbers aren't great. Maybe you could play Fortnite. And I was like, this is not going to happen.
Which is crazy now because I just started playing World of Warship probably the beginning of the year or so. And it's actually a really fun game.
It's one of my favorites, to be honest.
It's super fun.
I don't know. Okay, you guys have to sell me on it because for me, it just seems like you just see people out in the distance, you shoot at each other, and there's like no tactics other than like slightly maneuvering your ship.
Oh my God, it's all about positioning.
It's
and if you are out of position.
5v5 or is it 6v6? I think it's 6.
Yes, I think it's 6.
Yeah.
I want to say it's 6.
The actual competitive mode, I think, has slightly different rules. It's pretty similar, but yeah, it's like, oh man. So you got 4 classes, I guess 5 classes of ships now with submarines, but
yeah.
So you have like the 3 main classes would be destroyer, cruiser, and then battleship, and they all kind of.
So it's like all classes, positioning.
Carriers.
Yeah, and then carriers are kind of like almost command style units, and you just get lucky and you become like the only carrier player in a round and start like dominating on people, but like. They all have to play together really well. Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. You can like, if you try running off on your own, you might be like a medium class ship and then you run up against like 2 destroyers. You know,
and you just die.
You're just dead. Yeah. And so it's like, it's all about positioning and then like using the correct ammo, you know, are you using HE rounds, are you using AP rounds, are you hitting above the line, are you hitting below the line? I mean, it's like, it's a lot of precision and just tactics, but it can be a little. I feel like once you're in it, like you get it. But definitely from like the outside looking in, there's kind of like a
Because I played it. I think I played it when it originally came out in like beta. Because I was like, oh, it's World of Warships. But now, so I tried it and I played a couple of rounds and it literally just was like aim. What it felt like was just aim at the thing when it tells you to aim and then shoot and then you either win or you lose. So it's probably because it was just early on and I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't give it enough of a shot.
Yeah, it could easily be seen that way. And then as soon as you start to understand it, you're like, oh, I'm playing a destroyer. I need to like actually spot for my team. Like I need to give them visual information because I have a smaller signature radius so I can get in a lot closer and scout out for my team. And then the battleships and cruisers can position and set up for ambushes while I'm scouting. And then sometimes you find yourself in a great position where you can get like awesome torpedo shots on people. I played destroyer mostly. That was like my mindset, but I did play there's a couple battleships that I like really gravitate towards that are like the aggressive battleships. But like Tim was saying, a lot of it is just knowing like armor thicknesses and what type of rounds will work and like
how thick is it?
Yeah,
sorry.
So
yeah, how many C's are on that ship?
Exactly. Yeah. And then
at least
so you'll
3.
be like, some guy's like, are you really trying to broadside a German battleship with your tiny gun? And you're like, I don't know, man. It's a boat. I shot at it and it did nothing.
Oh, the knowledge level when it comes to specific like regions and like which country the ship hails from, it's wild. I mean, it's just like the level of nerdiness is almost comparable to like the War Thunder crowd. like you see like people like releasing like top classified documents, like the Apache attack helicopter to like prove a point. Like that's the kind of like nerdiness that you can get with like World of Warships.
Which is funny because it is designed very much as a video game and not a sim, right? Because like the battleships all look very accurate, but then you like hit the cooldown button to put out your fire.
Yeah, and you're
then,
popping
like,
smoke screens and stuff.
Yeah. I do love the smoke mechanics in that game too. Man, but we got derailed. I was
going to say, apologize for that.
How dare you, Matt? I could talk about World of Warships for hours. It's such a great game with a semi-aggressive monetization model. That
it's a little rough.
Do you like anime ships now? Because that's in there apparently.
That is weird.
There's like spaceships. Like it looks like they ripped it out of like a sci-fi novel.
There's apparently an anime show that is about like schoolgirls who operate battleships, because of course there is
Azure Lane.
Okay.
You know it? Oh, Matt's already a fan.
No, I'm not a fan. I just know
it's
of
called
it.
Azure
Okay.
Lane. Okay.
Oh, you sound very defensive, man.
There's one for World of Tanks, or there's a tank one also, and I think World of Tanks collabs with them as well, where it's like schoolgirls and like German panzers and whatever, and you're just like, what is happening right now, man?
Whoa!
I think it's based. I think it's a game, and then they made an anime out of it, and yeah, it's pretty big if you're into that kind of stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Schoolgirls fighting on battleships. What? It's a common theme, whatever.
It's anime.
Yeah. So Tim, you're with Facebook for quite a while. You're doing good over there. Every time I pop over, like,
he was doing all right.
Yeah, you're like #1 Facebook streamer. Well, I don't know.
I was doing okay.
Yeah.
I was there for a while. It definitely like when the battle royale craze kind of died off, or like it kind of just like came down to Warzone, was like being like the only like VR. It kind of like got to a point where it was kind of burning out. So then I switched over to Tarkov. And Tarkov was doing really, really well for a while. And then like all of a sudden, fast forward to probably like 2021, we're kind of like coming down out of quarantine. Things are starting to kind of like get back to normal-ish. And that's when we kind of like hit a wall. Like distribution kind of like just like fell off. And like unless you were playing Warzone like all the time, like that was the only thing that you wanted to do. Like you really weren't getting out there. Things weren't getting pushed. And I think a lot of like Facebook initiatives kind of changed how they were treating like live streams and overall like just video distro as a whole. So that's when like things I started to notice were like, oh no, I don't know if this is gonna do all that well for too much longer. So yeah, fast forward to June of this year, the end of June is when my contract came to an end, and I had a decision to make. It was like, well, I could re-sign. They were kind of like overhauling the whole partner program. And I had to make a decision of like, do I want to sign away exclusive rights and do X amount of hours and then like try to like put my content elsewhere, or do I just want to kind of find a place that I can call home where I don't have to sign my soul away and I can kind of just like do whatever I want? So I decided to switch over to YouTube and then also doing TikTok lives.
Well, it seems to be working for you.
Yeah, it's doing all right. Like the live streams, they do pretty well. I mean, like YouTube is as excuse me, as it's algorithmically driven, like like Facebook is. So it's like nothing new for me. It's like I don't have to hang on to like the directory position like you do on Twitch. A lot of it's being like playing the right game at the right time and using the right tags, like all that stuff. So like it's been like a fun like little learning curve. But it feels very similar to Facebook in that sense, where it's like I make a post and it's like, did you get enough interaction on that post? And then it gets pushed into the algorithm. It actually is nice to see that like YouTube is doing a good job of actually like pushing out content, which is nice. I can actually see it. I can actually see it's like, oh yeah, YouTube recommended you to like X amount of people, where it's like I didn't have my content on Facebook recommended for like a year and a half.
Well, I heard there's like X Factor because he used to be on Facebook. I think he's on Kick now.
He does Kick and he does Facebook at the same time.
Right, but he was saying like notifications just were not working forever, and like basic stuff just was not functional.
Yeah, it was really nice when like you go live on YouTube and you're like, oh, I got your notification. Like, yes, fantastic. Yeah, it feels good, right? Just a basic function you would expect any platform to have. Like it actually works.
It felt like I was just getting different reports from different people, but just watching it from even my own perspective of getting such like shoddy customer support on Facebook. And I got demonetized on Facebook for somebody saying I re-uploaded their content, but they probably uploaded my content and then claimed mine, you know, as that. And then just getting remonetized, I couldn't even do it. They were like, they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know who to talk to. I was literally on the phone with Facebook.
Oh my God.
They're like, do you have an Instagram account? Can you contact Instagram? And I was just like, what is happening to this platform right now?
It's so big.
It just felt
and
like
that's the problem
Facebook
is that it's so
gaming
big.
was just imploding on itself. And it's kind of weird how these platforms will have requested features for years, or features that seem like they would take a programmer a week to develop, and they're just not there for years and years. And you're like, how are things moving so slowly? You're trying to compete with the big wigs like Twitch, and you need to at least have feature parity with them if you want to be competitive. They just
we could do an entire podcast, like an entire episode, just talking about the intricacies of what went into that. And like, I mean, they were punching uphill the entire time. You know, it's just like, it's a small team. They were given a huge task, and like they continuously were like, they had like budget removed, or they had people that left. One of the craziest things about Facebook, not to make this whole episode about Facebook, but like they work in 6-month cycles. So they actually have people come on and they work on a thing for 6 months, and then those people, when they're done working, they move on to something else. So like you'll have them working on like Facebook gaming stuff, and like they'll be making like all these tools and everything that's going on, and then they'll move on to another thing.
That seems like a terrible structure.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's great in the overall sense of like how Facebook works, but like when you have a product that is so intricate when it comes to dealing with real people, like people that are continuously like using this product and being live and like all this stuff, it's so different than someone like making a post or uploading an image or like having a group. And I don't think they were ready for that. I don't think they were really understanding like the difference between like going live on your phone and just like having people watch. Cause like Facebook was one of the first ones to really like bring live streaming to the thing, to the internet. Like there weren't a lot of places that were doing it outside of Twitch. It was like Twitch and Facebook, and that was about it. But they were used to like people like live streaming from their phone in their car, or like in their backyard. Like they weren't ready for like video game live streaming. I think they took on just way too much too soon, or they assumed that they knew exactly what they thought they were getting themselves into. And then they realized they're like, oh, we're in way too deep.
Way over our head.
Do you think platform ever suffered from, and I'm worried that Twitter, or X rather, is going down the same path?
Just keep calling it Twitter.
I know. Where they're trying to be the everything platform, and Facebook very much is they're obviously trying to be that, but they never really had a Facebook. Like it was always like Facebook gaming, but like nobody really knew what Facebook gaming was. They're like, oh, you stream on Facebook. They never really, instead of buying another company called like Instagram that is just for your photos, they didn't make another platform for streaming gaming and then promote it with Facebook. They just put it on Facebook. And that always confused so many people.
Yeah,
and it made the UI just like, hang on, let me find the right one of these menus to click out of like 50 options, you know, before
I think from the sense of like distribution and like getting people involved with the content, it made sense to have it on the main page. I think what they tried to do too quickly was they tried to like segment it, you know, and like they, instead of just making it like it should have just been Facebook Live from the beginning. It shouldn't have been like Facebook gaming. They shouldn't have tried to like bring it into Facebook and then try to segment it and then bring it back, because like YouTube does it fine. Like YouTube as a whole like does a very good job of like having like live streams and VODs and shorts and like all of that stuff like kind of like cohabitate together. But it doesn't seem like Facebook in of itself can cohabitate with all their other products, because there's so many products that are trying to live under one umbrella.
Yeah.
You know, it's
and
just
YouTube
like
is at least just video based for the most part.
Right. You've got groups, you've got text posts, you've got image posts, and then you've got Instagram, and then you have threads. And like, and now like Instagram, you can live stream on Instagram, and you can also live stream on Facebook. And so it's
Facebook
just like
Marketplace too, right?
yeah, it's you can like there's a dating app on Facebook now. I mean, like, you know, like there's every like Facebook's trying to be everything.
Matt's signing up to his account right now.
They're
I haven't
very
logged into
first
Facebook
party
forever.
Yeah, honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I had to like be me and like post content on there, like I don't go to my personal Facebook at all. It's just like,
I can't. I forgot my password.
The last time I used my personal account, I I don't know what I did. My wife posted something about a trip or something that we did, and I pinned it or put it on my page or something. And she was like, "Oh, you're not supposed to do that. Or that's not how it works." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I did it wrong. I don't think I'm going to use this anymore. I don't understand social media. Goodbye."
Yeah. Facebook now is starting to feel like how MySpace did when our parents started getting on MySpace. And we're like, oh no, the boomers are here. We have to leave. That's how Facebook feels now. I see the same copy pasta post that I remember seeing on Facebook. It was like, copy this and tell me 10 things that you love about me, and then share it to your friends.
There was one trend because I would go Facebook to watch you and X, because you're the only and Stone, but there was these videos all the time of clickbait where they would come up with a scenario and it would all be fake, and it was just the trashiest videos I've ever seen. A woman, a wife would go down a grocery store, and her husband would be out in the distance, and he's doing his thing, and he would put on a wig and a getup, and then walk past him, acting like she was all into him, and then get his number, and then be like, "Surprise, it's me, your wife. You're caught cheating." I'm like, "What is this? Who are you?"
Oh man, social media content has become such trash. The stuff that's at the very tippy top, you're like, how? Okay, I'm doing it wrong, it's man. I need to.
Yeah, it's people breaking eggs on their friends' faces. That's content creation.
It's a prank, bro.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel too old now.
So how's the that's a pretty crazy transition to have, because you've gone from Twitch to Facebook now to YouTube.
I swear I'd never do it again. I was Facebook was going to be it. I was going to ride that off in the sunset.
It sucks, but I think it kind of speaks for itself that you're willing to abandon a platform that you spent years building up an audience on to go elsewhere because you just don't like whatever the contract and the interface and everything. And
just also lack of partnership opportunities or having sponsored streams and things like that. There's so many people that are either they don't see the ROI in Facebook, or they're anti-Facebook because of policies, or whatever it is.
So advertisers, you mean?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, the amount of the potential ad dollars that I missed out on just because I had I was streaming on Facebook, because immediately as soon as I announced that I was leaving Facebook and I was going off to YouTube, it was amazing how night and day that was. Because I started getting emails and people were hitting me up and they're like, "Oh, you want to do the sponsored thing?" And I was like, "Oh wow, okay." Now I kind of feel I'm picking up the pieces.
Even because Twitch is still known as the streaming platform for gaming, even though YouTube still has the highest numbers, I think, overall for streaming or people watching streams in general. The gaming sector is much smaller than Twitch. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it's overall across the board of all live streams, there's more people watching. Because hell, they did the PGA Open. I think was streamed on YouTube.
Oh, okay. That's gotcha.
Yeah, that kind of stuff's really popular on YouTube. But even then, I've had ad people come to me and they're like, "Hey, you want to stream this game? Do a sponsored stream?" And I'll be like, "Sure, no problem. I'll stream it on YouTube." And they're like, "Huh?" They're they don't understand that game streaming on YouTube sometimes is a thing. They're like, "No, how about on Twitch?" And I'm like, "I'm not I don't stream on Twitch, guys." And they're like, "Okay,
well, it's so weird because
that's back to marketing. We'll get back to you." I'm like, "Okay, guys."
That's how it was when I first started streaming. Because it used to be, "Will you do a YouTube video for this?" And I was like, "YouTube video? I'm a live streamer. Why would I make a YouTube video and I live stream?" And now it's "Are you going to live stream this? We expect you to do it on Twitch." And so it's it's weird for them to it's moving at the speed of slow. It's all this traditional marketing just takes forever to catch up.
Which is bizarre because they should, if they know of you, they should know what platform you're on. And then they should also have the metrics for the platform that you're on and not the one that you're not. That's right. That's if they come with a number and you're like, "We want you on Twitch." It's well, I don't have an audience on Twitch. Why? You'd be paying me for nothing, basically.
Yeah, because most of the time, they, the developers or whoever you're working with, they're working through just a third party agency,
right?
So they just expect they really are not paying attention, which is still just so mind blowing. I don't get it.
Yeah, man, it's I hope It seems like the transition's working out well for you. I see you streaming with Dr. Lupo and stuff, and I was watching.
Ben and I have known each other
Baldur's.
for years.
Baldur's Gate stuff, and that was pretty entertaining to watch.
Dude, BG3 is awesome, and just like the hardest part is like it's just like a real D&D campaign where you have to get your schedules to line up, or like it's just you'll never finish it. So it's
like a 100-hour campaign.
Yeah, we're finally in chapter 3. We're like halfway through chapter 3, so like we're getting there. It's just at the speed of slow.
Yep.
But it's cool though. I mean, it's got to be so fun doing that specifically with a friend, the whole way through.
Oh, very much so. And I like the way that I play video games is very different from how Lupo plays video games. So like I'm very like chaotic neutral, and I like to be an edgy Sith Lord whenever I play like single player games. Yeah. And he's very goody two shoes. So like anytime I want to do something evil, he's just like, no, you can't. I'm like, watch me.
So he's the paladin, and you're
I'm the paladin, which is the funniest thing. I'm a paladin oathbreaker.
Isn't he like, because I was watching a little bit, isn't he like the thief stealing stuff?
Yeah, he's a thief, and he's just like stealing everything. But as soon as I want to like make a sacrifice, and or I want to pop an eyeball out, he's like, no. So I broke my oath like the first instance I could. And, like I killed an innocent, and that entire thing was fantastic.
That's awesome, man. I haven't played it, but Matt is hundreds of hours.
Yeah, I love it. It's my game of the year.
I think it's everybody's game of the year.
That's awesome.
A lot of people are like Starfield. I'm like, I was like, Starfield's fun. I mean, like you can't compare it to Baldur's Gate.
You can't, especially now.
I don't think you can compare Starfield to Cyberpunk at this point.
Oh my god, dude, Cyberpunk now. Like, I'm glad that I played Starfield when I did, because it kind of like it got my brain ready for an RPG.
Yeah,
but like 20 minutes into Cyberpunk, I was like, this beats the crap out of Starfield. Yeah, like, there's no loading screens.
You can't go the other way, right? Because the character interactions in Starfield are like pain. And like Cyberpunk is like natural, like
so cinematic. Like the actual facial expressions like really mean something to you, and you see them talk to you, and they're just not like eyeballs off.
Yeah, there's
not.
Yeah, you feel like you're friends with Idris Elba. You're like, is he really? Oh my god, friend?
I loved his performance. Was phenomenal.
Yeah, I really liked it.
So good. And and I'm glad that Keanu comes back for that too. Like it really just brought it home, because if they didn't have Johnny Silverhands in that, I feel like it would have been awkward, but I was ready for it. I was like, okay, like Keanu's not in this. Like it's all about Idris Elba. That's fine. But this entire performance for Idris definitely brings it home that he should have been Bond. Like the oh my gosh, like that character was like perfect for that.
Such a missed opportunity. I can't believe they didn't go for it, man.
It was like, oh my god, he just crushed the whole like secret agent thing.
Did he decline it?
I felt like there was a lot of back and forth about like why he should or why he shouldn't. And
there's always behind the scenes stuff that we don't know, where he's like, well, if I take Bond, that means I can't do these 3 giant franchises or whatever, so who knows what actually happened.
But he nails the secret agent part perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was awesome in this. Tim, you're like one of I'm slowly creating a collective of other content creators who are also dads, because there is the like dad dynamic that I feel is so hard to relate to as like a content creator now. But how old is your kid now? How long have you been a dad?
He just turned 4.
Wow,
which is wild. Yeah, dude, it's nuts. Like he's in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle phase right now. So every morning that I come home from the gym, he comes out of his bedroom and he's like, Daddy, I want to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so I walk upstairs and I put on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle theme song, and he's Leonardo and I'm Michelangelo. And like that's what we do. That's our morning tradition. And
the updated one, or do you ever throw the Vanilla Ice?
I do that. I played the original, and I tried booting up the live action Ninja Turtles that I grew up on for him. And he was not for it.
The live action was great.
I love the live action. Like Ninja Turtles 2 is phenomenal. And 3, when they go back in time to Japan, is just
I was like, why is like Rodin? What is this?
It's so good. But yeah, he loves the cartoons. He's into that. He reads. Which is just like wild when like he just like grabs a book and he starts like reading.
He's reading at 4?
Yeah, he's reading. It's wild.
Dang, dude.
Yeah, he's scary smart. And then he knows a lot about Star Wars. He said something. Of course
he does. If you're his dad.
He said something the other day which like blew my mind, because he knew it and my wife had no idea what he was talking about. I can't remember, but it was just like one of those like proud dad moments where it was like Star Wars lore, and Amy was like. She's like, I don't know what he's talking about. I was like, I do. I was like, I don't care if you do, but I love that he knows it. So he's so freaking cool. But yeah, he's just like, being a dad is definitely like it's hard. It's cool that, like, for like as a content creator, it's cool because he's kind of been a part of the content as he's been growing up. So like my community kind of feels like a part of his life. You know, like he comes in, he wants to talk to chat. You know, he comes in at lunchtime, he brings me lunch, and then he's like, I want to talk to chat. So he sits on my knee and he like talks to them. But like, you know, 4 years ago, I was holding him, you know, so it's cool. It's a lot though. Man, kids are a lot.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Oh,
it's been for me, it's been like the transition of going from like, yeah, I'll just keep doing all the content that I normally do and work 18-hour days whenever I need to, and also be a dad. I don't see what the problem is. And then as soon as reality smacks you in the face, you're like, dude, and then like, oh my God.
The thought of like, just, you know, did I spend enough time with my kid today? You know, it's just like, oh my God, like, you know, like every action like could potentially like alter the way he grows up. And like that in the back of my mind is just like terrifying. It's like little things like that where it's just a constant just state of anxiety. Just like, oh God.
Yeah, because you're your own boss. So you're like, well, I really need to like put more time into this at work. And and then, but to do that, I need to sacrifice some time with the family. And so you're not the one making the decision where maybe a boss might make that for you, where you got to go in on the weekend. I can't do anything about it. My boss said that, but now you're your own boss. So now you're like, well, I have to keep my business alive and be like a good dad, and constantly balancing it. You're the only one who can blame yourself for going too far in either direction.
You're the reason why your kid screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the terrifying part. Also, like you said, like it's like opportunities. You know, it's like, man, could I have had that opportunity if I would have done like more of this? But you know, you decided to go to the zoo with your family. You know, it's just like, but at the same time, it's like, you know, streaming in of itself is just a brief moment in time, whereas like that's gonna be his forever. You know, it's like that, like those are like deep like decisions that you have to make, and it's hard. And like you said, like 10 years ago, so easy. You know, I could stream for 12, 16 hours, and I was like, all right, time to go to bed, and I'll do it again tomorrow. Like that's totally fine. But you can't do that anymore. Like there's just it's weird to, I guess, be a grown up. You know, like in this industry,
it's its own reward. It's not a monetary reward.
It really is. It really is. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you do have to weigh out the whole like, you know, do I do this or do I be a family person? You know, it's like, do I go off and do this thing or do I do that thing? So it's a lot more, you know, that or this.
It became apparent really quickly to me how much this industry is not built for like the family lifestyle. You're like,
it became apparent really quickly.
I thought he did that one on purpose.
I don't think he did.
I wish I did. No, I didn't think about it. But yeah, I got two now, and so the second one is just like, forget it. I have to be like starting. How old your first? He's 6 now. I just started kindergarten.
Oh my God,
it's pretty wild, dude. I mean, it's getting real. He woke up with a little nightmare after I put him to bed last night. He usually happens within 30 minutes to an hour of him going to sleep. I come into the room and I'm like, what's up? And he's like crying. I'm like, what was your dream about? And he's like, I realized that one day I'm going to die and there's nothing I can do about it. And I went,
okay, little buddy, I struggle with you. Don't worry.
Those are deep adult thoughts, because I have that one too.
For it. I was like, I was expecting some sort of like, oh my God, like I was lonely or something.
You know, or I lost my favorite Lego or whatever. And I was like, no, it's death. Nice.
Yeah, it was really funny too, because he needed a bit of calming down. And so I was like talking him through it and sort of like, all right, well, we get to live for a really long time, so don't worry. And then like my wife checks in and I was like, hey, you want to swap out with me? And then I kind of like whisper in her ear and like, he just asked me about like, you know, that he's going to die someday and he's freaked out that there's nothing you can do to stop it. All right, see ya. She's like, it's pretty funny though. But yeah, I know you're not ready for it. They're 6 and they're asking like the fundamental questions of life. And you're like, oh, right. I need to like brush up on this now. Let me, you just come out from gaming and you're like, what? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we were walking through Target yesterday and we walked by like the infant clothes. I'm like, fuck, I miss the baby. I miss that. It was so much easier, you know, but like but at the same time, like dealing with the phases like each phase has been like enjoyable and also like just like hard at the same time, you know, it's just like, and that's the cool thing too, is like to look back and like, yeah, that was easy, but I remember that being really, really hard because of like X, Y, and Z reasons. Like, damn, I'm glad that's over with. You know, it's like, but now he's got this whole nother set.
I don't
remember the first year.
Yeah, you can't because your brain is so exhausted. You're like literally, there's like science behind it where you just don't retain a lot of that information. And I think
because your body wants you to make more of them.
Yeah,
and you're just
there's science that like gets your brain to forget how insane
how
was
miserable
the first time,
it was,
and then you're like, you want to have another? And you're like, yeah, that seems like a good idea.
Great. It was easy. Nope.
Man, it does make me wish for the old, just doing it in the village way, you know, where you just pass it off to like 1 of 30 people. And you're like, all right.
My brain went somewhere else with that. I was like, where are we going with this? Village way.
I didn't say where are you going, Matt? Mormon? Is that what we're doing here?
No, I don't know where you were going with it. So just continue, go on.
I don't know, village people, something.
That's right. That's right. I thought we were going with it.
The village people way.
Yeah.
Oh man. Tim, one of the things that like surprised me about you once is because I check in on your stuff from time to time, you know, as old content creator buddies do. We look at what we're up to, and I saw you streaming Star Citizen, and I was like, wow.
Oh man, what a dirty rabbit hole.
I did a triple take, honestly. My headphones fell off my head, and I was like, what is Tim doing in Star Citizen now?
I spent money on VK joysticks and stuff.
All in.
Yeah.
I did, and then like I went through a few bad patches, and I was like, I'll just wait until it's in a better spot.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at right now.
3.18 dropped, and you were like,
I saw your content. You were showing off the rover, and it was just like there was like some weird collision and just like flipped over.
That was the patch they said they made driving physics better, and I'm driving out of the parking garage, and the car flips over after hitting a speed bump. And I'm like, okay. Not going fast either. Going slow.
Nice. Just like real life.
Where they were bringing in like all the like the tank combat. Like they were showing off like tank combat and like all this like really cool like on planet stuff that you could do. And it still just feels very lacking in that department.
It's the constant struggle with Star Citizen where because it's an active development, also live service game, which really hardly anything is those two things at the same time. They're like, here's the new features, and you're like, this tank feels like absolute garbage to drive. It's possibly one of the worst tanking experiences I've ever had. And then at the same time, you have like a community that's like, oh, this is awesome. And you're like, have you played any other games with tanks in them? Because this is possibly the worst tank experience out there. But
they've only lived in the verse their entire time. Like that's it. That's all they've done.
It's the space dad complex of just like, this is the game that I've been waiting for my whole life, and I haven't played other games for the past 10 years or something.
Like if I could have the gameplay loop of Starfield in Star Citizen, of like the bounties and like the missions and like the cool stuff that like made Starfield like fun, but in like the intense simulator that Star Citizen is, like man, that would be a really great game. Because like that's the biggest problem for me is the gameplay loop in Star Citizen is so dry. It's so just like you can only do so much before you felt like you've gone and done that 100 million times. Like how many times can you like go and deliver a parcel, or how many times can you go on a bounty hunt? And like it's fun for the first couple of times you do it, and then it just gets dry. Well, because there's no real like there's no storytelling inside of the verse, because like that's where Squadron 42 is supposed to come in. But in the whole idea of like you make up your adventure, you make up your story is cool to a certain degree. It's like I need a little bit of hand holding here. I need you to like give me something to play with
there to make your own story within. Right now, it's kind of like Gary's mod in terms of making your own content, because you're like, I'll create a challenge for myself, and then I'll do that challenge, and you're like, well, that's cool and all, but how many times can you do that before you're like, I'm done here? Like, give me a game to work with. And I agree with you on the Starfield thing too, is playing the Starfield quests and doing like, oh, I'm saving farmers, to like, I'm up in space fighting pirates, to I'm clearing out a bunker and solving puzzles and getting stabbed in the back by some weird dude that I just met, and then going to Star Citizen, you're like, and it's like, go kill this guy, here's his coordinates, good job, here's some money.
With AI.
Do you ever see it getting to that point ever though for Star Citizen? Because it doesn't feel like it's ever going to get to that point where you're doing
I don't know
quests.
if we'll get. So what annoys me right now is they have quests that are designed sort of like that, but they try and inject them as big group activities. So the Siege of Orison was supposed to be a quest like that, where Orison, the whole city is under siege. I don't know if you played it, Tim.
No, I have. It was rough.
Yeah, I know. And the problem is people are like, it's my favorite event. I'm like, have you played any game for the past 20 years? Because
I don't know how playing an event at 15 frames per second the entire time and the server like lagging itself into the ground is a fun experience.
Yeah. I managed to get on outside of the lag. And even then, there was one... I did I solo cleared the whole thing.
Wow.
Because nobody else, I guess it was like a little bit after it popped off and everybody had gotten bored or whatever. I just had a weird window and there's like maybe a group of guys trying to do it, but they were like slowly searching around one platform and you can basically cheese it all the way to the end. Yeah. And so I just went through and cleared every single guy. And it's not because I'm good at gaming, but just basic shooter skills, because the bots have like 5-second reaction times.
Yeah, they're terrible. They're terrible.
So as long as you look around a bit quicker. Anyway, but the point of that is that there was some narrative content there. They do come up on little comm channels and they're like, oh, you're getting closer to the cache or whatever. And then you'll hear from the friendly commander, like, we need to group together and like make a push. And so you have these sort of voice acted narrative elements in the mission with changing objectives along the way. And you're like, that's cool. But that'd be cool if that was every mission and not once a month, once every 3 months group activity that's going to play at 30 FPS, you know? So unfortunately, all the missions are like, pick up a box, take it here, go here, kill that guy. They just did a Inside Star Citizen episode last week showing off some new missions that they're working on. And one of them is like a data running mission. It's the new data running thing. And you basically just go to a bunker, the same bunker you've always gone to, press some buttons on a computer that lets the hackers get access while you also shoot the bad guys. And I was like, this is the same exact thing as every other mission, but you're calling it data running and like whatever. It's like they just need to be able to start chaining missions together more and doing a little bit of like narrative content in there to spice it up, you know? But I think they could get there, to answer your question, Matt, in a very long format. I think they can.
Maybe I'm just, because I don't play as much Star Citizen as you have, but the way I see it is that the quests necessarily aren't going to be narrative driven, but they will hopefully facilitate more player driven narratives situations where it gets a lot of people to go to a certain area, have combat encounters, and then you've got systems in place that people will come in and they'll salvage the ships, and then those salvage ships will try to take and then maybe piracy someone will try to take, steal the salvage that they have, and you're trying to bring it back to your base, and you're building up your base, and then you create your own story, not necessarily a RPG. We've got characters. That would be nice, but I feel like that would be more of the focus, is making so that the players can create their own. That is what they're
trying to do. That's kind of their goal. So one of the other missions they just came out with was like it's like a blockade running mission. So there's a bunch of pirates guarding a base, and you have to like get through their blockade and deliver the supplies. And that's supposed to be a community-oriented mission where either you can work with the pirates maybe and try and get some supplies and sell them, or you can be on the blockade runners. And it's a cool concept. Every time this all started from Jumptown, which was kind of an accidental situation where they created a drug lab where the drugs were selling for an insane amount of money. So everybody started a fight over the drug lab, and then it turned into a big community event. And then they went, oh, hey, this is a community event. And they tried to design it around the community event. The problem they have with the other community events is they usually don't put the value high enough. So people are like, well, I'm going to do this for role playing sake. But if I spend my time just doing any other mission, I would be making more money. So they keep kind of missing the goal there, but I also don't think the persistent universe is their primary focus at the moment. I think they're trying to get that Squadron 42 shipped, and so
I would hope so. I hope, like, at this rate they're going, Mark Hamill's going to be dead before even game comes out.
It's okay though.
He's like the main lead. Tim. Oh, they did?
No, I don't know. Older?
But that's I was like, geez, like,
well, it's with AI. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they did already Well, they almost certainly 3D scanned him because they have him as a character in the game, right?
Right.
But that's like what the whole Hollywood writer strike part is about, is they're trying to get rid of the like scanning actors for their likeness and all that. And you're like,
they won. So
is it over now?
It's over. Yeah,
that's awesome.
They got the contract they wanted.
Good.
Nice.
People deserve to make money, so
yeah, deserve to be treated well, make money, right? Make a living. Mm-hmm. How dare you?
Yeah, right. As Bob Iger sits up there.
Yeah,
fuck nuts, dude.
Matt, I see in the notes here that you wrote fitness journey.
Yes. So the last time I think I saw you, Tim, was Battlefield 1 reveal. Mm-hmm. It was at EA Play.
Yeah.
And your body back then, not the same body that you have now.
No, I was probably 60 or 70 pounds heavier.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask, because I like to, fitness is hard. And I was wondering, what was the thing that got you, what was a spark? Because it's not, motivation is fleeting. Yeah. What was the thing that kind of got you and kept you going?
Yeah, I mean, like I was really big into competitive karate when I was a teenager and early in college. And then I got into streaming. And so like that sedentary lifestyle and kind of like a little depressed, like when we left Gainesville, when we left UF, all our friends were gone. And so we moved to a place, that wasn't near family. It was, no friends or anything like that. So like streaming was kind of like my outlet for all of that. And so I didn't really prioritize anything else. I've also I grew up, I don't want to blame it on like my upbringing, but I grew up in kind of a poor house. And so like our relationship with food was whatever was there, we would eat.
That's a fair excuse. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I never had like a really healthy relationship with understanding like how my body operated. I didn't really realize that I was lactose intolerant or that I have a high sensitivity to egg yolk. And so like, and so like I would, I grew up eating eggs. I grew up eating cheese, and I just assumed that like the way that my body felt was normal. And so to answer your question directly, the big changing factor was actually my kid. Mm-hmm. That was the big defining moment. I was trying to like get my weight under control and whatnot, and try to figure out diets. I did like the fat thing. I tried doing keto and like all that stuff, but it was never really analyzing the root problem, which was understanding how my body functioned and what type of foods I needed to eat in order to sustain my body. So kid comes along. I'm like, you know what? I want to be able to run with him. I want to be able to play with him. I don't want to be that dad that's kind of just like sitting in the background, just be like, good job, kiddo, and just like can't like kick a ball with him.
Hell yeah.
So that was the really big driving force to like really like figure it out. And then for my 30th birthday, I started working out. I had lost some weight, but I was still like in a place where I was like, man, I know I could do better. Like, what am I missing here? And I was trying to do like the calorie tracking, like all that stuff, but I went and saw a sports nutritionist. Okay. And like we did like a whole blood panel with like, they tested my blood against like 186 different proteins. So I learned that I was lactose intolerant. I learned that I was sensitive to egg yolk. I learned that I shouldn't be eating quinoa and like all of these things that
I didn't realize they could tell you all of that stuff.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like it was kind of pricey. It was like $500, but it like, instead of like doing like the normal like food sensitivity test where they put your blood up against like they look at whatever's like in your blood.
Allergens, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like this, they took my blood and put it up against proteins instead of seeing what the proteins were in my blood. So it was trying to get rid of false positives. And so like that was like the most accurate test that we could take. And like it's amazing. Like it was a complete night and day change once I like went through a whole month of just like detoxing and getting that all out of my system. Weight just fell right off. And like understanding it, like, hey, like if you're gonna have carbohydrates, awesome, have them around your workout. Like use them for fuel, what they're supposed to be used for, and like putting fats towards the end of the day, so it's a longer burn going into the next day and things like that. Like just really like
I love having
like having just a good relationship with food. And it's funny, like I went to school for all of this. I went to school for biology and I took my nutrition class and all that stuff. But even then, none of that was really taught. And I think it's so frustrating because it's such a simple thing, but all this stuff gets so gatekept. Like you have to follow it. Like you try following like all these like, the influence of the influencers that are working out and they're doing like the diet stuff and whatnot. And like they make you like follow their programs and whatnot. But it's like, it's a really simple thing. And like, that's the one thing I've been preaching on, like because people come to me, they ask like, hey, what did you do? Like, what's going on? It's like, it's so frustrating that the simple things took so long to figure out.
And it really is fairly simple.
It really is. Caloric deficit is like, how finding what your BMR is, figuring out like what's your maintenance calories and then just shooting underneath it and being in a caloric deficit, 300 to 400 calories, and that's it, and you're good. It all just comes right off. I've been able to shred in bulk multiple times, and it's like been the easiest thing for me because like before it would have been so daunting, but now like I know what I need to do. I just get it done. Like that's it.
What I find frustrating a lot about the influencer side of things is that it is very, what is the word I'm looking for? They always put parameters around it where it's like you can't eat any carbohydrates, or you're only eating meat, or it's like just eat a balanced diet. Don't have as many calories, and statistically, biologically, you're going to lose weight. You don't need to do this crazy. Yeah. And it's going to make you probably healthier, and you're going to stick with it longer because you're not depriving yourself of something that your body is craving. And I just find that really frustrating that everyone seems to like, oh, if only I did this, if only I followed this keto diet, or not saying that they don't work, but they're hard to work because you're constantly having these cravings.
Well, they're marketed as like the easy fix, right? Yeah,
most definitely.
I think for like even a week or something, I was like, I'll try the all meat diet. That sounds great. And then you're doing it. You're like, this is the worst thing ever. I feel awful. And I look at a steak and I just want to die, and you're like,
I think like the craziest thing was like switching from the mentality of this is a diet versus this is my life now.
Yes.
Like this is just how my life is going to be versus like once I reach this goal, I'm back to normal. And like
because everyone's on a diet. Everyone's
exactly.
On a diet.
Your diet is just what you're putting in your your system. And people yo-yo so much because they follow like this fad diet, or they try to do this and they try to do that, and then like they'll see results and then they won't see the result because like they initially just lost water. And they're like, but now I'm not losing the 5 pounds that I lost last week. It's like, yeah, because you peed most of that out. Now the hard work starts. And then like people get so frustrated and they lose 1 pound of fat. But then you look at a pound of fat, look at what that is.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of mass. Like just it's dense. It's just big. It's gross. And like, so good. Like people, they don't take the joy in like the small steps. They want to see like the big, like 50 or 100 pounds. But like just to see like a 1 to 2 pound loss is huge.
Yeah. And the same thing is for muscle gain too. If you go into a gym,
very much so.
If you go to the gym and you come out and then the next day you look at yourself in the mirror, nothing's changed. You look the same. But you keep doing that and you keep doing it regularly, a month will go by and you will have changed.
Yep.
But it's the small incremental thing that makes it so tough for people is that they don't get that instant gratification. And so you just have to be in it for the long haul, which is hard. And I'm not saying it's not hard, but
what do you do?
But once you stay consistent, it's a part of your life.
Yeah.
How much food prep? Like, that's the thing that's always gotten to me is like actually getting good, healthy food that tastes decent at the same time is like either I got to make it myself, I got to go like do a lot of preparation work, or there really isn't much you can just go out and grab that falls into the like, hey, this is fairly decent, healthy food.
I've found it to be more enjoyable when I make my food versus going out and trying to get pre-made stuff. Because I get so frustrated when I can't hit my macros right. And so it's like, I find it more satiating and just more enjoyable when like we've meal prepped. So like every morning for me is always the same food. I always have a banana before I go to the gym. When I come home, I have got 6.5 ounces of chicken, rice, and some sweet potatoes. And like, that's my breakfast. And like, so like I have a very like scheduled like routine when it comes to my food. But like just like but like switching it up and like finding ways of making that enjoyable is, I think, part of like it's part of the fun for me. It's almost I constantly try to like say that it's like a video game. I'm always trying to like min max. I'm always trying to like find fun ways to like change these things up. And so like I've kind of just turned that into a video game for me. But yeah, like meal prepping is huge. Like just being able to like my wife and I like we'll sous vide up like 6 pounds of chicken. Like we'll sous vide that up and then we'll
Sounds fun.
I pull it apart and then like that's all of my protein for the week.
How long does it take to sous vide 6 pounds of chicken?
Couple hours.
Oh really? Okay, that's not as long as I thought.
It's not bad. Yeah, Just like you pop. We do it on Sundays, so we just like pop it in the sous vide for like throughout the day, and then like when it's done, we just like in the evening we'll pull it out.
Nice. It is funny how much you start to learn in like, at least for me, I was in my 30s about just like weird stuff I've been putting in my body that's been making me feel like garbage for my entire life. I'm like, I thought everybody just felt like trash all the time.
Yeah, dude. Like for me, like for cheese, I thought cheese pizza. I thought eating pizza was like that was normal. I figured everyone just kind of like their belly hurt a little bit. No.
Yeah.
And that sucks that like, grew up like living like that. Just like back to the whole, I wish there was a handbook for how to be alive. You're just like, hey, here's the things you should do.
Well, it's not intuitive because everybody's standing around eating pizza and then we all like go home and you don't like analyze yourselves or anything. You're like, how'd that make you feel? How'd that make you feel? Oh, we're different also in what we eat, because you don't think about it that way. You go, we're different. We're taller and have different hair and whatever, but you don't think about the eating part. And then only when you're older, you're like, of course, it's so obvious, but it just isn't when you're younger because you're not really taught to think about it that way.
Well, I also feel like as you get older too, you get more susceptible to what you eat. Because when I was younger, I could eat anything, and I would be fine.
Yeah,
but now if I have like a cinnamon roll, I pass out. Like I'm just done, right? I even get like even a little bit of a headache. Like it's bad. So things really matter. And I can notice instantly, like the other day, I was kind of feeling a little lethargic. I had some yogurt, the protein got in me, and I was like, bam, all of a sudden, my head just cleared. I was like, this is stupid. Why am I like this? Just
sucks
be normal.
Old.
Yeah.
It's funny though. My kid likes to eat pizza, and there's a spot that we've gone to. They do like my wife is like gluten intolerant, so like they have like a gluten-free crust and whatnot, and like they changed the recipe, so like their dairy-free cheese like just is not working for me. And like my kid, he loves pizza. And he's like, why can't we go there? I was like, because it makes daddy's tummy upset. He's like, do you need to go see a doctor? like, no, not that kind of sick. It was just like,
fix yourself, Tim.
Yeah, right. So like trying to teach him too. It was like, hey, like people are different. Like what might taste good for you, not so much for daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
What's your
crazy
go-to
how much
protein
milk we give to kids too when they're like young too. Because I heard that might be like part of why a lot of people are lactose intolerant or like have issues with
80% of the entire population on the planet is lactose intolerant. We're the only mammal on this planet that consumes other mammals' milk past infancy.
Yeah,
it is the weirdest thing, and there's like, and so like our bodies are just not designed to.
It's on
like
the
really
food pyramid, man. It's got the
exactly
milk on the very top. Yeah.
Matt, what was your question?
What protein? So if you can't eat eggs and you can't do your lactose intolerant, what's your go-to protein snack?
Yeah. So, oh man, I actually really like doing like protein powder pancakes. So there is a whey protein isolate. Is totally fine. It is lactose.
It doesn't have the lactose
so it's like,
in it.
It's really ultra filtered out.
You just eat tons of pancakes
protein.
And you look like that, Tim? Come on, man.
That's my go-to, man. I love making protein pancakes. They're so good because you don't need to use flour. You don't have to use any flour. I literally do 2 scoops of protein powder, baking powder, a little like fake egg binder. It's like tapioca.
I was going to say, how do you make it without the eggs?
Yeah, because there are fake eggs that you can go and buy. It's like tapioca and a couple other like weird things that all come together, and like you mix it with water and it comes out just like the same.
That is that is the weirdest pancake. You're not using flour and you're not using eggs.
It's my favorite. It's like my favorite go-to, man.
Okay, I'll have to try that.
All right, I'm gonna have to switch up my Sunday pancake schedule, man. Do you guys want to talk about game news a little bit?
Yeah, let's knock that out.
We generally talk about a little bit of game news on the podcast, or a lot, depending on what's going on that week. There's been some crazy stuff in gaming. I don't know how much. Usually, as streamers, we get affected by, or you guys get affected by a bit more in terms of like anything that dropped that week, you immediately know about. But there's been some crazy stuff behind the scenes with, did you guys hear about Epic firing 900 people from their company?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this comes, I think it's kind of a ramification of the whole tech sector right now.
Yeah.
Dropping a lot of tech sectors are doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't Blizzard just fire more people too?
Mm-hmm. They're all firing. And I think, what's happening right now, and this kind of went right alongside with Sega canceling Hyenas. Did you also hear about that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That game looked like it was 99% done, like almost ready to ship. There's people playing in the beta, and like a lot of the feedback was like, this is actually pretty fun. Like it's pretty good. Yeah, I heard that from a bunch of people, and they're saying that the marketing was kind of doing it a disservice, making it look just like sort of some Fortnite in space type game, and that it was actually really strategic and interesting. But I think we're kind of hitting that gaming bubble right now, where COVID hit, the demand for digital products and games and everything went crazy. All the companies either hired tons of people or started big projects. And now we're seeing a lot of that aftermath in the video game sector start to come out right now, or near the end of its development cycle. And I think Hyenas is probably a product of that, of just being like, we need to make a game. Digital sector's on fire. It's sort of like a battle royale, extraction royale, AI, NPC, PvP thing that I think was pretty hard to define. And then they pulled the plug before even launching the game, which
the beta must have really struggled to get a player base if that's the case.
I think it was closed.
It was closed beta though.
That was the problem. And like the only advertisement that I ever saw for it was on Twitter.
Yeah. Well,
that's how I learned about it.
Well, I think it was closed,
yeah,
but you just had to sign up. Like you just had to request on Steam and you got like instant access.
Yeah.
I think. It's one of those where it's like, it's closed, but they just do that so that if it does have a flood, they can manage how many they bring in.
I was watching a video from somebody who played in the closed beta a bit, and a lot of the concern was that they're launching it as a paid title when basically a lot of other competing games were all free to play.
Yeah.
And I think Sega ran the numbers, realized that this was not going to take off, or if it did, they were going to have to put a lot more money into it to try and gamble to see. And they just figured they were going to just lose a lot more money if they tried to launch it as a free to play, and even as a paid title, it would just generate bad PR for them. If they're like, here's a $20 game or a $30 game, and then the people who buy it don't have anyone to play with because it doesn't sell well enough, and then it just looks bad for the company, and then they're trying to sell their next game. They're like, oh, it's a Sega game or whatever the company that makes Total War was making. I
feel bad for the devs to work that long on a game and have it nearly come out. It's in closed beta and it's close to release, and just have it be axed right at the finish line.
I think the game industry's got to be one of the hardest places to work in, because that doesn't happen as much in the film industry, because usually like the project gets
unless you're Warner
Brothers start though, right? Like you look at film and it's like usually it gets trashed at the start before they start making it. Yeah. Is this the Snow White thing or whatever you're talking about?
No, there was like a couple of DC films that were axed.
Batgirl got crushed. And like it was completely filmed. Like
they had trailers for it. It was ready to go.
Everything. It was ready to go. And they're like, nah, in the vault you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Didn't they do that with I heard they were thinking about doing that with the Indiana Jones movie, and then they like had to like completely redo a whole bunch of stuff with it or something, because the audience
it wasn't all that great either. I didn't see it.
Well, I mean, if you hear that from the beginning, you're like, well, what's the re-edit going to be? Like, it can't possibly be like a fantastic film. It's going to be like passable. I didn't watch it though, but yeah, it just seems like in the game industry right now, we're hitting that bubble. And I, because we had so many good games come out this year, but it's almost, if you think about it, like if Starfield had come out right after Cyberpunk, it might have like lost half its sales. Like we don't actually know what had happened, but you're hitting all these big titles right next to each other, and it's just like a saturation like I've never seen since I started doing YouTube. I don't think I've seen this many games come out back to back to back of high quality, like decent production quality. And then the Immortals of Avium came out like a month ago and like predictably tanked, but
it didn't even take off, really.
It didn't do anything. No.
But I heard it was great. I heard it was a really good game.
Mediocre.
It was okay. I didn't play it. I didn't think it was worth my visually for me. When I saw the trailer for it, I was like, no, I'm good. Like the whole like first person space or first person magic COD thing just seemed kind of off.
Some people liked it, but it just, when you saw what it was going up against, and then there were like $50 plays, you're like, nobody's going to drop that on this, because you're surrounded by some of the best games ever made, all dropping at the same time. And then they're like, Immortals of Avium, come play.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, it's single player only for $50 and the campaign's like 7 hours and it's not like an open world, whatever. I don't know if it's 7 hours. It might have been longer, but
it was longer than that, but it had poor performance for me at least. And that was the real deal breaker, is the performance just wasn't
poorly up, but they had to lay off, I think, half their studio after that one.
Yeah,
so
it sucks.
Yeah, you're like, I think there's a lot of companies right now that are sort of doing that math right now, and they're like, well, especially if they're a free to play title or they need some sort of microtransaction profit model built into their equation there, they're probably strongly looking at canceling the whole project because of how much it costs to launch and promote and advertise a game. You're like, oh man, this is bad. And you can't shelve a game like you can a movie. You know, like you film a movie, you get it ready to push into theaters, and Titanic's launching. So you're like, well, we can't launch it alongside Titanic, and then let's just shelve it till next holiday season or summer or whatever. But with a game, you can't just keep the dev team on in the background and be like, well, we'll just wait. Like, they cost a lot of money to keep around.
Yeah.
And then you can't launch the game without the dev team because there will inevitably be issues and they need to be there to fix it and whatever. So games kind of get screwed.
But what's so crazy is you have games like BattleBit that dropped this year, or even like I played a game yesterday, Witchfire. Like BattleBit had a dev team of 3 and was awesome. Witchfire is a dev team of 12. And that is actually a ton of fun. I think like what they've done with that is really cool. It's like a Souls first person like roguelike shooter.
I think you had a better experience than I did, because I played it and I liked it. I'm glad.
Yeah. What happened with your experience?
I found that it's a hard game, and the beginning was rough, and I think my biggest issue was the world that you're in. It got a bit repetitive. Like, you were just constantly bombarded by enemies. And then on top of that, I could never find heals. So
yeah, that's definitely the one part. That's the problem that I'm having right now. I only put 4 hours into it and I was like, this is fun. And then I got to the point where I was like, it's starting to scale. And I don't know if it's just me.
And that's the thing, is if you level up, the enemies get harder.
Yeah.
So you leveling up and getting a little bit more HP, it's like, oh, well, now you're going to have to deal with even more enemies and they hit harder, and you have like only a little bit more extra stats. So I think the balancing is a little off. And the biggest thing is the heals. I don't know why they need you to go out and like find the herbs to get it, when you could you could just have it like Dark Souls. Like, oh, you have 3 flasks now. Every time you go in, you've got 3. We're good. I don't know why there needs to be this constant revolving door.
But the joys of where this game is right now is that it's in early access, and it's like, and that's the other thing too, is it like, you know, what if Avium came out like a lot earlier and able to work with people and things like that? Like, I feel like gaming, the way, like the traditional way of making video games also needs to change.
Yeah.
Like, if you're trying to like hit certain marks, or you're trying to do certain things, like I feel like the traditional way that we've gone about like dealing with like video game releases and things like that, I think it needs to change with the times, so you have a better product.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you have a game that's able to come out early, and you're not going to try to like bait people in with like an $80 purchase to get in and play early and get feedback. Like, if it's like if it's a low entry point, and you can kind of like play the game as it's developing, like Star Citizen in a certain way, like you are able to play it as it's developing and give feedback and like be a part of like that whole story. I feel like people end up getting more out of that than they do of like spending $60 on a game. It's like, well, this was crap.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, and we're probably seeing it in the tech center right now with all the different companies laying off so many employees, is they're trying to make their companies more lean and efficient. That's what they talked about doing with Battlefield when they brought in the new management. And they're like, we need to get this team lean, able to pivot, able to adapt to whatever we come across in development, and sort of come up with better ideas. That's what the indie industry is so good at doing, because they're small teams that are passionate, and they're like, well, there's 4 guys that understand the game like the back of their hand. That's the whole dev team. And now we can kind of move and realize the problems all at the same time. And then you look at big industry and you're like, well, marketing's building the game, really. They're in charge. I don't know why this happens all the time, but marketing ends up being in charge of all these big projects. Like, these are the last guys that honestly should be in charge, because they go, oh, well, there's a market for this, so make a game around this. And now all of a sudden we're in charge of a project. And you're like, well, you're not game developers. So great, you found the niche, but then you end up being in charge of it long term. And so you get all these really weird development process problems in the big studios. And I was working with a big company the other day who's, I won't mention because I'm going to talk trash about them a little bit, but they were sort of saying like, we're really excited about how open and transparent we're being with the community right now. And I'm like, you guys are so far from being open and transparent. Like the fact that you think you're being open and transparent is like core to the problem of like why your community doesn't trust you at all and stuff. So it was just sort of an interesting experience of hearing them thinking that they're being like way, like really good about all their PR and interaction and stuff. And I'm like, you guys like aren't telling people anything and you're giving them like really misleading, vague stuff, and like nobody likes it. And it's very stuck in the old ways of being a big company, and they just don't know how to, they just don't quite see what's going on around them, and it sucks.
At the end of the day, it's always legal. That is always the reason why you're like, why can't you say this? It's like, legal says we can't, because it would affect their it would affect their stock prices. You know, like that's always what it comes down to is like, is it going to make the C-suite happy? Like, is it going to like affect our bottom line? Like all of these things where like it ends up ruining a lot of like you said, like that customer to like developer relationship. You know, it's like where like you really want it, like trust them, you want to believe in the product that they're making, and at the end of the day when they can't really tell you what's going on, like it's hard. It's very, very difficult to really trust, you know, anyone in the industry right now.
And also gamers don't help. Gamers,
that's true. Yeah.
Like you hear so many stories of developers wanting to be transparent and wanting to talk to the community, and then as soon as they open up, they get dogpiled on by a bunch
threats.
of even if it's only a couple of people. There's enough people that they just drown out the positivity and ruin it because they don't want to deal with, like you said, death threats and things like that. Yeah.
I'm guilty of it too with the Battlefield, not death threats, but just against material.
Damn, dude.
You know, I mean, DLC was too expensive, man. No, when I forgot which developer it was on Battlefield for, I think BF4 was quoted as saying our netcode's like magic or whatever. I must have re-promoted that meme like 20 times, you know. And I'm sure the guy obviously regrets the heck out of ever saying that, because the game launched and the netcode was dog shit, you know?
Terrible, yeah.
But so yeah, you say more stuff, you be more open, you're more transparent, you open yourself up to a lot more. The internet doesn't forget, right? You say something a year ago and they're like, but you said a year ago, and now you're going back on your word. But it's a weird thing where the big companies don't want to say anything that could be construed as almost weakness, where I was trying to make a video for this company recently, and they were really just getting into my vocabulary of the video, and they're like, we don't really like how you use this word. It could be construed. I'm like, you guys are up your own asses. Like, this is insane. And if I use your words, it's going to sound like an ad read. Like, it's not so insane. Your voice. Yeah, it's not going to be my voice. It's not going to be an opinion about something. It's just going to be your marketing ad read on whatever this is. And they just can't stop themselves, and they just got that marketing brain. And I think marketing and the way that the legal involvement and all that stuff has got to change with these big studios if they want to, I don't know, hack it in the like modern gaming world. Obviously they're doing fine, but I think they're firing a lot, and they're going to have to scale back and redesign their process. So we'll see what the AAA world looks like in another 2 years from now. It might be completely different.
I would love to see just more indies like just pop off. Like it was like I feel like the indie scene has slowly just continuously started to creep upon the AAA world.
Yeah.
And like I'm all for that. Put more power to the people. Yeah, and like let them like.
That's where you finally get good ideas too. Different ideas.
Most definitely. You're not going to get the same rehashed Assassin's Creed over and over and over again. You know, or you're not going to get the same copy of a shooter. You know, it's just like it's really fun to see like what creativity can be expressed in a video game when you're given the tools and you're given the freedom. You know, like some of the stuff that I see on TikTok of like a person who like downloaded Unreal Engine and is just making their own game.
Yeah. Have you seen
one
Doku?
person?
Have you seen Doku's game?
I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah. Isn't that insane?
I think you retweeted it.
Okay, I probably did one of the times. One guy making this game that it looks better than almost any other shooter I've seen in terms of the mechanics. Like, obviously he's one dude, so it's not going to be like this insanely content rich experience or something.
Yeah.
But the mechanics and the shooting style, I got to play his game a while back, and it's just like mind blowing how one dude is creating a game that's like super innovative. And you're like, well, the first person shooter's been like done to death. How do you innovate the shooter? And he's like, well, here's my idea on it. And you're like, this is great. How come nobody else has thought of all this cool stuff? Like, he's bringing back classic genres, but updating them in fun ways. And just like, this is one dude without anybody in his way of like stopping him.
Is this the one that goes like slow-mo?
Yeah, he's got some slow-mo kind of bullet timey stuff going on. But he's got crazy like stuff where you can like get bullets that track people. You shoot them and then the next shot will track the target, but they're slow bullets, so you can kind of dodge them a bit. It's like balanced. There's crazy stuff, and then it's like kung fu mixed in there, and you can block bullets with your samurai sword and stuff. And I'm just like, this is really cool. Like, in one dude's doing it, and then there's that guy that's doing the road to Vostok by himself.
Yeah.
He just switched engines
adding a bunch
from
of new
Unity to Godot or Godot, whatever you want to say it, called that engine. He's developing it by himself, and he's switching over to Godot by himself. That's because wild. Of the
he doesn't want to get charged
debacle.
For running his
I know crew Unity.
Yeah,
good
talk
God.
About how to blow up a code. We talked about that
dude.
last week, but it's pure insanity. I've never seen a worse decision from any company, and I watched EA launch SimCity, so I mean, there you go.
Isn't the same guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's
yeah. The same head dude. EA, right?
How crazy would it be if that guy was the dude that was like, ship SimCity, and they're like, no, it's gonna crash and burn. He's like, ship it.
Wouldn't surprise me.
That would be what I'm sure our timelines are off or whatever, but maybe not. He might actually have been the dude. What do you guys think about Counter-Strike 2 deleting CSGO and just being like, here's the new Counter-Strike?
I don't really have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
Neither do I. I mean, like,
nor do
I had CSGO. I bought it,
Yeah.
So I mean, like, it kind of like sucks, but like, I like playing Counter-Strike because I think it's like, I think that I'll be good at it, and then I pick it up and I'm like, I'm terrible.
Trash.
Just like, I try to hit a headshot. I'm like, why can't I ADS with this gun? This is very frustrating for me.
Yeah.
Like, you need to know the recoil pattern.
They added in a really cool feature for new players where it will follow, your reticle will follow the recoil now. So you actually have now and it's great.
Thank
so
God.
Now you have an
idea. It's the most unintuitive game ever when you need to learn recoil. You have to download trainers to learn the recoil. And you're like, why isn't there a system in the game to learn the game? It's only one of the biggest games on the planet. You would think they would have an easier onboarding experience.
So now I thought I was hitting those shots, but in reality, I could see that it bounced to the left and above his head a little bit, and then it kind of evened out up there. So it makes it a lot easier to like grasp, and it's a great learning tool. But it's still Counter-Strike.
You still have to memorize the AK recoil pattern.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Yeah.
Very hard.
Visually, it looks awesome. Like, I love like all of like the new things that it's doing. Like watching like smoke and the way that it interacts and how that's really a lot more strategic it is. Like, that's cool. Like, for me, like seeing that, like those innovations, neat. But it's still Counter-Strike.
But they're in a place where you're exactly right. It's Counter-Strike, and if they try to deviate from that too much,
the
community is going to rebel. Because I don't blame them. Like, we've been playing this game for 20 years.
We
don't want you to change it.
The game.
That's why, like, can you imagine?
It's like playing League for me. Like, it's so hard for me to get back into League because League of Legends has changed so much from when I used to play it hardcore. Like, jungle timers are off, and
10 years ago,
Baron is different, and like getting dragon means something completely different now. There's all these different wards and bugs that are scuttling up the river and things. So it's still League, but there's still like fundamental things that have changed. So like the mechanics are just so awkward for me now. So like I couldn't imagine that for a Counter-Strike player to be like, could you imagine like they just changed how like the op works? It's like, oh shit, it would be so jarring for somebody.
Yeah. And they're also, CSGO still kind of top of the game when it comes to esports shooters.
Oh, yeah.
So they're not going to try and, if it works, don't fix it type thing. So they're just making the engine better and a lot of the other stuff. But even then, within the very, very nuanced mechanics, there was someone like tweeted out what Shrad said on his stream. He's like, CSGO is going to be the death of Counter-Strike. And I don't even know what his critique was of it. And I do respect Shroud and his opinion on things, but I was like, wow, that's a pretty crazy hot take to look at like a game that has like just a handful of things that are different from the previous.
He said Counter-Strike Go will be the death of it, or Counter-Strike.
Sorry, I'm not sure what I said.
Go.
Sorry, yeah, Counter-Strike 2 will be the death of Counter-Strike or something like that.
That's a bold statement.
That is a very big statement. Is it because it's free to play?
Well, Counter-Strike Go was free to play by the end too.
Was it?
Yeah.
I remember paying for it. I remember like dropping like $20.
Yeah, they eventually transitioned over, but
I'm not sure. I should have dove into that more. To figure out what he was actually talking about. But he was playing with a bunch of other pretty top tier players that were like, whoa. Like, all right, Shroud, like it's a bit over the top. So I don't know if he was just kind of throwing stuff out there, but
he also could just maybe had a bad day and wasn't vibing and was frustrated.
He didn't have his protein.
Been there.
He didn't have his yogurt, man.
He didn't have his yogurt.
Didn't have his yogurt. And it was like, Counter-Strike 2 sucks. The death of Counter-Strike.
I know I've said stupid things when I'm frustrated. I'm like, why did I say that? Like, I don't actually believe that. Like, what am I doing? Yeah. Shut up.
Yeah, we've all been there, man. We've all been there. You have any good stream screw-ups, snafus, Tim, that you...
Probably more than I would like to count, I'm sure.
It's live.
Anything that actually gets you in
live,
anything that ever got you in hot water or stuff that you would rather not bring up on the podcast?
Thankfully not. No, thankfully there was never anything that was like borderline cancel. You know, like thankfully, or like where I was like, I may have said like too many curse words like in a stream, but like outside of that, nah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Matt, I know you had the milking incident, but other than that,
that was like 8 years ago.
Did you get milked?
No. What? No. What?
Oh, okay.
What? I'll let you tell Tim what you said.
I don't want to go down. I don't want to go down that memory
lane. I mean, we all know. I mean, do you want me to
live.
Tell him, or do you want to tell him? You know, I mean.
You can tell if you want.
I'm
past that. I got like people 8 years later were constantly saying that. It's like, okay, the joke's dead. It's been 80 years. We can move on.
It's never going to die for me, Matt. It's like the greatest thing you've ever said. I don't know what you were playing. Rainbow Six, maybe? Something?
It was Rainbow Six, yeah.
Rainbow Six, and you had something happened in game that required you to make an exclamation. And you said, "Milk me, mother," like that, like really loud.
that's where that meme came from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tim knows it. He doesn't even know the origin. He's like, "What?"
No, like I've known that meme.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
Because I'm pretty sure I've had people like when I was streaming Siege, that came into my chat all the time.
Really? God, I can't believe that was like everywhere.
Like that was a very tight knit community, man.
Yeah,
everybody knew everybody.
That makes me really happy to know that it just.
I had a guy at an event come up to me
somehow,
and he said that to me. I was like, "What the?" It was like he was like in his 40s. I was like, "What the hell is going on right now?" Yeah, it was wild.
Oh man. The live world.
Those were the days.
Indeed.
Oh, I wanted to quickly. Have you guys heard of the game called United 1944?
No.
Do you mean Battalion?
It's called United.
It's called United?
United 1944. It's not a game about the United Airlines. And it had
Airlines?
Yeah.
Well, I was the first thing that came up was Flight 1944 for United.
It had a beta this weekend. I don't know if it's still going on.
Is it World War II?
Yeah, it's World War II.
Oh, it's got base building? Was it like Rust?
Yes.
Yeah,
but it's World War II Rust Battlefield mix. And it had no one playing it, which is why I wanted to talk about it. It had like 30 people playing when it was rough. It was hard to find a game.
It has an RPG element to it. It has a skill tree.
So the way it works is each team has a base that they start off with, their headquarters, and then you need to go around the map and you collect stuff. So you collect resources like in Rust, and then you can either build up your base and protect your base, but also you need to find these safes around the map, which brings back intel, which allows you to make your own bases. So you basically will have these set points around the map, A, B, C, D, E, like in Battlefield, but you choose where you want your other objectives to be located. The more objectives you have, the more tickets burn on the enemy team, just like in Battlefield. But then you have to fortify those bases with walls, with you can put down barbed wire and mines and stuff like that. And then the enemy can decide, well, do we want to just build up our own bases and try to establish our own? Or do we want to go in with bazookas and level up our skill tree? Because you have to decide, am I going to go base building this round, or am I going to go guns this round, and then blow up their own objectives? It was surprisingly fun. Yeah.
It looks decently high production quality too from watching the little trailer here.
Yeah.
It's jank, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
It's indie for sure, but it was such a cool blend of it's because like in Rust, it takes days to get things going, right?
Yeah.
It's a very slow process. But in this, it was a 45 to, I think some games lasted like an hour, but 45-minute match, start to finish, and you kind of get that whole build your base, you go attack the enemy, you can have that back and forth to offense and defense.
So you kind of get the Rust experience in a bite size.
In a way, yeah. In a way. It was cool.
I can see that, yeah. It seems like Steam is Steam involved in this or no?
I don't know if they are.
Did you get to play, Matt? So you got to play?
Yeah, I got to play. I played it for a night.
How was the gunplay?
It was decent. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
That was actually what critique that I had, is that there were some guns that were pretty fun. Like the SMG was really good. And then they had these other ones where it gave you like a huge reticle because you're using World War II weapons. And so it just kind of like sprays bullets down range. I'm like, I don't know if I really like that.
There's a clip on the Steam page of this guy running around with an MG42 and like the crosshairs like almost the size of the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the thing I didn't really like, is I felt like the gunplay and things could have been tighter. Yeah. And there's also no armor or anything. So once the match progresses, if you haven't gone the upgrade path where you can get a SMG and you're more base building, you're just going to get kind of dunked on because you just don't have the better weapon. So it's a beta, but I was pleasantly surprised. A game that had only like 30 people was as fun as it was.
Okay. Yeah. It's on my radar now.
Yeah.
I'll
check that follow button.
I want to check out, and I haven't had time to yet, but I want to check out Big Fry's game demo. Do you guys know Big Fry?
No.
Content creator.
YouTuber?
Yeah, YouTuber. He covers a lot of like indie projects because he's become a game developer essentially, and so he's like cool. Really interested in like upcoming, usually shooter titles. Yeah. He launched his game demo, and oh man, I'm trying to remember what is Transients, I think. Transients, I believe, is the name of his game demo.
Okay.
I'm gonna check it out though. People have been giving him a lot of praise for it, and he's making a first-person shooter in Unreal. He's got a little dev team working for him, and
sick.
So crazy.
It's cool, man. Yeah, that kind of stuff like really inspires me. Like that's what I initially was trying to go for out of college, was game development. And I ended up in YouTube somehow, but it's still sort of like in my heart, you know, I'm like, I want to do it.
But the technology is there now. It's so easy.
It is,
and it's getting even easier now.
It's not easy, but it's.
Well, it's not.
I mean, like the sense of like watching people
compared to what it was.
Go and compared to what it was like 10 years ago.
You can do a lot more with less people now.
Do you remember like when the Crysis map editor came out and it was crazy, where you could just like grab terrain, you could like pull it up and you could like make a map? Like that was like, holy crap, we could make our own level in a video game. And like now people are using that same idea, but now they're making their own video games with the same tool sets. And so it just seems like as we go along and as these engines start to become more optimized and more user friendly, and they're like, you don't have to know all the coding in the back end because they have all these GUIs that allow you to do it on the front end. You can make these really cool games with the correct assets and whatnot. And it's all very effortless, it seems like, in compared to how it was, 10 years ago.
Well, it's really funny because we're kind of entering a weird phase of the asset flip shooter as well now, which is there's these marketplaces for all the in-game engine assets are everywhere, and a talented dev can throw together like a game that looks like something relatively fast and it not actually be a game, or be a crappy game for some sort of quick cash grab.
Get over it was
or only up.
Yeah, only up. That's what it was. Only up, not get over it. Only up. Yeah.
Only up. It's just literally asset dump game.
Yep. Yeah. And I spent some time looking through asset stores and started to recognize them all in all the games that we're playing. And I'm like, oh my God, like this game looks incredible. Everybody's praising it, but every single spaceship in it is from the Unreal Asset Store or the Unity Asset Store or something. Like, I mean, it's not that it's not an impressive game. It's just very interesting when you get a little peek behind the curtains and you're like, oh, this guy didn't build everything from the ground up. They bought a whole bunch of stuff and then put it together and then and then figured out the back end of the engine, which is still impressive. And I think we shouldn't shame people for using the asset store. It's just an interesting new era of game development where you're like, oh, I made a World War II game, and that guy over there also made a World War II game, and we're using the exact same gun model assets, and our games are both in the Unreal Engine using the same lighting system, and they look almost exactly the same, but mine is about building bases and his is about sniping or something. So yeah, I think we're gonna run into some interesting times ahead of assets kind of convergence.
Be saturated.
Yeah.
Well, just with only up there's now there's asset flips of the asset flip, right?
Only down.
So there's carbon copies of it. And the funny thing is the run animation and the jump animation, everything is identical. Yeah. Because they're just using probably the default animations.
Yeah, Unreal has an FPS engine starting building block, which has a standard character run animation, and then you can buy more and just add them on.
I'm sure that's just what they used.
And now that people are able to make these, like now Epic is encouraging people to make games inside of the Fortnite engine. And so like you're going to run into that same problem too, is where like people are going to be making all of these games inside Fortnite. I mean, heck, you got like Courage and his group that are like those content creators that are making their game inside the Fortnite engine, and then you have all these other teams that are making this like different games, and you're going to run into that same problem, is they're all going to end up using similar assets to a certain degree, and things are going to start kind of meshing together in a weird way.
It is brilliant though. I mean, Epic is like straight up just throwing down the gauntlet with Roblox. They're like, oh, I see what you guys did there with Roblox. That's a cool idea. Here, we're going to do the same thing, but on the Unreal Engine. And
it's not going to look like ass.
Yeah. Well, and also your dev skills will count for something at the end of the day, because you'll be using like a widely used engine as opposed to the Roblox engine. Like, I'm a great Roblox developer. You're like, okay. But did you guys see that COD knockoff game that was made in Roblox?
I played it.
Yeah.
No.
It's amazing how good it looks for being on Roblox. You're like,
it looks like an older Call of Duty game, but it's in Roblox. It doesn't look like Roblox at all. And it's not great, but it's pretty impressive what they pulled off considering it's Roblox.
And it's on Roblox. Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. We are going into a weird area too of just so many free games that it's like we've become very spoiled as gamers, where like people can talk trash about Starfield, which is arguably a very good content rich game. But when you throw it up against the greatest games of all time, you're like, oh yeah, I can see all its flaws now. It's not as impressive, but again, we're still complaining about a game that has hundreds of hours of potential like content in there,
I spent 80 hours my first playthrough of Starfield.
It's about same here.
I didn't even New Game Plus it. I just waited. I just kept just milking it because there was just so much stuff to do.
We were saying we didn't even like the New Game Plus thing because we'd built all these cool ships and collected all this cool stuff. And we're like, why would we want to get rid of all that? Like, no. If you want to let me start over, let me keep all my stuff. Like, come on. But potato, man. Did you, just to bring it back around to Star Citizen real quick? They
I swear to God, you and Star Citizen, man.
I can't stop it, man. I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm ascending to the asteroid or whatever the heck those people were doing. They sent out an email only to the people who have spent, guess how much in the game?
Over $5,000.
Over $10,000.
Oh my God.
They sent out
I can't even believe you can spend that much money in that game.
What?
There's a reward for spending $25,000 in the game.
What's the reward?
Just
a pat on the back?
They better give you an aircraft carrier or something.
Skin on it.
Congratulations, you've spent way too much money on our game. Here's a sticker.
Yeah. So the $10,000 reward is a heavy fighter called the F-8C Lightning. And this it looks like it's been done for a long time, for years. But they've been holding back a lot of these quote unquote finished ships because they're key ships in the Squadron 42 campaign.
Yeah.
And I don't think they want to ruin Squadron 42 by letting everybody play with all the ships ahead of time.
That makes sense.
So they're holding back a lot of that content. So it's been in game flown by AI, but you can't get it yourself, or they'll show it on like a display stand at one of the events or something. But they just sent out an email. It's a pretty cool looking heavy fighter. It's gonna
kind of looks
badass.
like the Hurricane with a lot more armor.
It's like if the Hurricane only had one seat and they just gave all the guns to the pilot.
Oh, is that not a gunner on the gunner turret?
The F8C is solo. It's a single seater.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
So yeah, potentially a huge amount of firepower for one pilot. It does look like a very cool ship. Like I want it. I'm not going to spend 10 grand to get it, but I want it.
I was going to ask, how did you get this email?
Well, somebody I know sent it to me, and also it was on Reddit. Right, as soon as somebody,
I'm giving you a hard time. I'm trying to imply that you spent
information spread on the internet. Well, Matt, let me explain. So anyway, where was I even going with this story? So the significance of this is that this ship has been more or less finished for years, just sitting there, and all of a sudden they send out this email saying, you guys are getting a legendary present, and then it's like a magic eye, and it says F8C in the magic eye if you look at it, on October 10th, which is like a week from now. And that ship is very much tied into Squadron 42, and that the initial plan for everybody else to get it is if you beat Squadron 42, you will then gain the ability to buy the ship in the persistent universe, right? So if you want that ship, you have to play Squadron 42 and beat Squadron 42 or something. I'm not sure what the actual challenge will be, but that was the idea behind it. Mm-hmm. So if they're giving it out now, all of a sudden, after basically having it for years and years, and they're saying, hey, we're giving it out now. CitizenCon, the biggest event of the year, is at the end of the month. There's been this like big hype train building and sort of rumors about Squadron 42 potentially being almost done, which has been a rumor forever. It seems like maybe there's something to it. And Jason's in our comments right now telling me that he told me, which he did. Because he wants credit for telling me about the email. I did see it on Twitter first.
A lot of copium. I'm thinking you're just huffing a lot of copium.
I'm gonna say that I definitely err on the side of Star Citizen fanboy and wanting to believe, but I don't know.
I mean,
I hope so.
Why shelf a ship like this for so long, and then all of a sudden, just like this year is the year we launch it? Why? Why this year? Why not last year? Why not the 4 years before it when it was also done?
You sound like there was these people that were for Titanfall. Like Titanfall 2 is now playable, and there was all these people like, oh, it came out. This update came out on the 3rd, and it's like
watch
all these threes, and they're like, it's got to be Titanfall 3. It's like it could be, but I feel like we're digging into this.
Yeah, but that's fun, Matt. Digging into it. We're conspiracy theorying. And maybe there is... Okay, Apex launched without any news. Right, Matt? Apex launches. Nobody knew it was coming except for like a handful of people that went to like stream it on the day it launched or something, right?
I was there.
Were you there, Matt?
I was at the event, yeah.
Were you there, Tim?
I didn't get to go. Okay, no, I was watching it because as soon as it went live, I was playing it.
Yeah, and there was no lead up. I mean, that's a pretty darn good kept secret right there. There was like a little bit of rumblings about something, but people were like Titanfall 3 type game. We don't know. And then it dropped. So, I mean, if Respawn pulls a Respawn, there could be a Titanfall 3 that just shows up out of nowhere.
That's true.
What have they been doing this whole time? I mean, I guess
Respawn's
they have been
defense, they've only been working on a Star Wars game. They've got Apex, Star Wars, and there's one other game that
they're working on another Star Wars too.
They're working on another Star Wars game that isn't Jedi.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's the first person shooter, I think. But
like they took over Dice LA. So Vince is running up Dice LA, which isn't Dice LA anymore, and then also Respawn, and they've increased the overall capacity of the campus. Respawn is scaled very, very well. So I mean, the thought of them bringing another Titanfall is not out of the realm of possibility, but
I know you're a huge
so much effort in
Titanfall
Apex.
fan.
Oh, I mean, that's my thing, dude. Like, everyone's been begging me to go back and play Titanfall 2. And I'm like, I don't know.
Do you think the game, in its kind of current design, could still make it? Or would they need to change it pretty drastically? Is Apex the refined version of Titanfall to make it more mainstream? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think the problem is the arena competitive shooter model just doesn't work now. there's not enough risk and reward. There's not enough drive to really like boot up and like look at Halo. Halo Infinite, I think, is a great example of why the arena shooter just doesn't really grab people's attention anymore.
Like you said, no risk and reward.
It's the live, kill, die, repeat model. It's just like people don't find that to be entertaining for long periods of time like they used to 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like when you have battle royales come out, which was the natural progression for your arena shooters. Well, now you've got games like Tarkov. You've got extraction shooters. That is the evolution of a battle royale. That's why I say is
Apex the ultimate refinement of Titanfall.
I don't think so. I think it would end up being something more than that. I think you'd have to go down the routes of like an extraction survival shooter, where like I think that's where Titanfall would have to end up. Where it's
maybe
like you are
have
on
your Titan and like some areas of the map you can only get to as a pilot, and some areas Titans.
Or you're collecting pieces to build your Titan or something like that. Like they've got they've got to do something where it's like it has to be more meaningful than just like prepare for Titanfall and you go down there and like you're fighting and like, oh, I lost my Titan. Shucks, I guess I'll get it back after I get enough kills of like NPCs. Like that was the model for Titanfall, and I just don't think it is enough to keep people going. Like unfortunately, Titanfall 2, yes, the release window was crap. You were right up against Battlefield. You were right up against Call of Duty. But I think the problem was that there wasn't enough substance to keep people engaged with the game for a long period of time.
I agree. And I think, and I always kind of get flack for this because every time I hear like, oh, Titanfall 2 is the greatest first person shooter ever made and it's a masterpiece. And I agree it's really good. And I do think that it suffered from a lot of problems, like the DDoS attacks were really bad. The release window, there was a lot of things holding it back. But it's like, if this game really was as good as it was, it should have been able to maintain that player base, and it should have been able to organically grow. And it didn't, because of, I think there are things that do hold it back. And I think you nailed a lot of them. Yeah,
the single player was fantastic. I think the storytelling was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good.
You as the pilot and you being connected with this robot that was semi-sentient, if not fully sentient, like you had this connection with it, this ultimate sacrifice that it made. Sorry, spoiler alert. But like it was a very compelling story. And I think that's what people end up going back to when you said, Matt, like Titanfall 2 was one of the greatest games that ever come out. The single player portion was very, very good. But like you go back and you watch like Titanfall 2 multiplayer stuff, and it's like, oh man, like no reason. Like I could see exactly why the player base fell off so fast.
It came out 5 months before PUBG launched as well. So that was like the turning of the tides when people were like, oh, the casual competitive Call of Duty Battlefield arena shooter is dead.
Yeah.
Like that was basically when it was all going downhill. And so, yeah, it just, even if it had come out later, like that summer, everybody would have been playing PUBG and forgetting about the classic FPS as we know it. And that's very much the market. Titanfall was basically trying to compete with Call of Duty and Battlefield's classic game modes. And that was a genre that was basically in the process of dying to the Royale. And so
it also
like,
didn't help the skill. The skills that people were adapting to and like what they were utilizing was like a lot of like old school, like Unreal, like mechanics, like being able to like bunny hop across the map, like Game Sagers, or like even like Frosty Omen, two amazing Titanfall players where you could never touch them.
Yeah.
And like, and as a new player, it
made
sucks.
Games not fun. Like for me, like I made Titanfall not fun for people. Like I totally understand that. I know that I did that, and I'm like, I mean, you could honestly blame some of the like really good players for killing that game if you really wanted to.
There was a little bit of elitism because I recently played I recently played it, and people were like, I was saying there are a lot of the maps in Titanfall 2 have terrible wall running sections. There's like very little wall running. There's like one map where you're out in the middle of the field, and I'm like, I don't know how to get from one side over to the other quickly. And this doesn't feel like Titanfall to me, because when I think Titanfall, I think wall running. Like, no, you got to like bunny hop, air fly. I'm like, what? Where do you learn that in the game? Like, it just tells you to run on the wall. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, this is basic stuff. I'm like, what do you mean it's basic?
Yeah, those are the guys that did the speed run gauntlet, and they would like throw arc grenades backwards, and they'd like, they'd go flying, and they'd triple bunny hop and stuff.
Yeah,
like it's cool. It's like on paper that sounds really
cool.
neat, but when you're trying to apply it and you're playing against those people, it's not fun.
Yeah, that's where you almost need the skill-based matchmaking to come in with Titanfall, because other games, at least Call of Duty, you're like, oh, he's faster reaction time than me, right? Like, it's pretty apparent why you lost that fight. But in Titanfall, you're like, how did he flew over my head? And then the grappling physics alone are impressive, where you're like, how did you swing that far and arc out and do all that stuff and chain it together and do all the hopping at the right time, and you're like flying across the whole map. It's like Tribes level or greater skill to like be.
It is awesome. It is really cool to see. Yeah. But when you're on the receiving end, oh boy.
It's why I don't think TF3 is gonna come out in the same formula. If it does come out, it will have to be a completely different game. That's why I think like the next Battlefield will have to end up being a completely different game. If not, portions of it will have to be a completely
Which is
different
probably
game.
why they wouldn't try to do the whole extraction thing. I think they saw that was the direction the industry was going.
Matt, they didn't really try and do an extraction shooter. That was somebody like, we need an extraction shooter to be the third pillar of Battlefield. Make it in 2 months or something. Like it was garbage.
I think that they were attempting to do that route, and then they realized that maybe they're in over their head. Maybe they don't really understand the genre, and then they had to scrap it and be like, okay, we need to actually make a normal Battlefield now, and just try to do it way too quickly. Yeah. But I do think they saw the direction, because they see that you do have like Conquest is just, it's kind of a boring mode now. Like I still love it, but in the grand scheme of things, things have moved away to that battle royale extractor.
I've talked about this before, but I made an extensive video exactly about this on like how to redesign Conquest to create a greater risk reward, end game reward scenario, hype people up for actually winning a match and caring about what's happening in a Battlefield round. And, a lot of people were agreeing with it, and they're like, yes, this is what the franchise needs to like still be Battlefield, but be relevant. And I'm just worried that they might be too far along with the next game, or that all they're going to do with the next game is segment it into like, here's the Royale section, here's the classic Battlefield section, and here's the other section or whatever, and not really do a lot to update the classic section, because I think the classic section might just die if they don't change enough with it. Because as much as I love the old school days of BF3, BF4,
it's dead, unfortunately. I think, in my opinion, I think those are the glory days, and I think we're just we're past it now.
Well, like I said, Tim, this is the podcast about old gamers.
It is. It really is. I love the theme.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's probably a good spot to wrap it up here. I know Matt has to prepare for an actual stream and doing work, and Tim's probably got to get back to his family and stuff. But thank you so much for joining us, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is super fun.
You want to pimp out your where people can find you and stuff?
You can follow me over everywhere. Darkness429, live Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern, until whenever I jump off. So
perfect.
That's awesome, man. And we'll put links in the podcast. You'll find them.
Yeah.
Put his name in the title. Well, thanks, Tim. This is great to catch up, man.
Heck yeah, dude.
It's been a while.
More often.
For sure. We'd love to have you back on our super famous podcast. You're going to blow up after this. And just watch those numbers skyrocket. But also, I mean, in that nature, you did switch over to YouTube recently. And go give Tim a sub on YouTube. He's streaming on YouTube now, because if you've heard of him over the past 10-ish years, whenever you started, you might think he's still on Twitch, and then you might think he's on Facebook.
There are still people that are like,
I miss when you were on Twitch.
It's like, okay, I'm still alive.
I like how it's still a child.
Well, that's my default chat voice. You know, that is how they sound in my head. So
yeah.
Fair enough.
I get I miss when you played Airsoft videos, or played Airsoft all the time, and I'm like, okay.
It's like 20 years ago.
Those were really good though. Like
they were
solid Airsoft videos.
They were damn good.
It took like 3 days to produce each video, and people are like, why don't you do it anymore? I'm like, because
it was hell.
I'm tired.
So tired. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. Matt, you want to close us out with some wisdom?
Live, laugh, love. Thanks for watching.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Dude. Eat, love, pray.